So what is the role of legal aid in Alberta?
Legal Aid is an independent society whose task is to accept applications from individuals who cannot afford to pay legal fees in immigration cases, family cases, criminal cases.
And they supply a lawyer to those folks.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then eventually pay that individual.
Okay, so what did Legal Aid say would happen when its governance agreement was up for renewal this year?
Well, it had been negotiating with the government for 10 months and was close to an agreement when all of a sudden the government went silent, refused to attend meetings, refused to continue negotiations. In addition, on April 1st of 2024, the government was to pay Legal Aid its normal installment of $23 million.
Right.
It didn't pay it. It still hasn't paid it.
And so what are the ramifications of that?
Well, the ramifications are very significant. First of all, this impacts the court system substantially. The courts wouldn't come to a halt, but there would be great difficulties, great delays caused by this if clients cannot be represented, particularly in criminal courts where timing is very important. Further, this has great effect on the morale of the legal aid employees, the clients. It causes great distrust by clients in terms of, well, do I have a lawyer? Will I have a lawyer when I have to go to court?
So the contract is now expired, or where do we stand?
The contract expired on June 27th,
Okay.
and the government gave no reason for not concluding negotiations. It simply went silent.
So there still hasn't been any further comments?
Well, there has been a further comment by the government indicating that it will continue negotiations, but there's been no real explanation given for why we see this intransigence.
Now, Legal Aid said the government's proposal for a new contract would put their independence at risk. So why, and why is that a concern?
When the government was negotiating for a new agreement, it included the Law Society, Legal Aid, and the government.
Right.
So 3 parties. The government's proposal was a grant extension, which would have cut out the Law Society.
And why?
That's the loss of independence.
I see. So, and why would that be a loss of independence?
Well, because you can imagine from a perception perspective, the government hires prosecutors. Now the government's going to hire the defense. And on the grant agreement, the impression was that the government could control how the money is being spent. So one can imagine a situation where a government MLA might say, we're not going to pay for this person who's charged with a criminal offense because he's been harassing our party. That's not the government's role. That's the court's role. And that's why that independence has to remain well in place.
So what happens if the Justice Minister and Legal Aid can't reach an agreement on a new contract in the coming months?
I think there would be a great backlash. I think there would be applications by lawyers to courts for what are called Fisher orders, which is ordering the government to pay for legal services, particularly in a criminal case. But it's a real mess, and it causes a real lack of morale. And part of the problem, Mark, is this. This seems to be a trend with this government trying to control doctors, teachers, AHS, and now Legal Aid. It's a real troubling trend.